Okay, so I haven't done any work on the Land Rover for an awfully long time. It's January, and I haven't done any work since I think May last year. So it's been an awfully long time. I've been working on the Porsche mainly, and then towards the end of the summer, I just didn't do anything on cars at all because because the Porsche took so long. So what I am going to do today is just spend a very little amount of time up here. I'm going to check the tyre pressures. And I am going to cut down the bolts for the seat belts at the base, which I've been meaning to do for ages, so just small jobs. And I want to start by removing this wheel here to make a bit of space for the last bit of work that I've got to do on this side of the car for the MOT, or second to last I should say, as I did on the other side, is to repair the lower section of the tub just under here, because that's corroded away, and because it's where it connects to the chassis, that will be an MOT failure over here. So these are the seatbelt bolts, they're the anchorage bolts. So there are actually two things I've got to do here. As you can see, they were supplied, I got two from eBay. They're supplied slightly too long, so what I'm going to have to do is cut them down. I think I'm going to have to cut them down by about, it's quite a lot actually, but by about maybe 10 or 15 mil, I reckon. So that's the first job there. The second job that I've got to do really is take these anchor points off and clean them up, red oxide them and then paint them black, but that's something that can wait really, so I'll probably end up doing that after the MOT. So I just tightened those bolts in just as a test run without cutting them down, and actually they fit fine. They fit really tight because they come pre-coated in a anti-slip solution, and actually you're not supposed to tighten them down completely because then you wouldn't have any movement in this seat belt. So there's a couple of mil play in there, as you can see, but there's not a huge amount, and it won't rattle, I don't think, so I'm just going to leave them like that. Okay, so now I'm just going to jack up this side, take this wheel off, put it on an axle stand and make some space to get to this section in here. Okay, so I've jacked up the car, put an axle stand underneath there, wheel is over there. Got some light in here as well, just so you can see it better. Bit of mud here actually, I went for a drive the other day. But you can see here the section where the tub connects to the outrigger here, that is heavily corroded, so that will most likely be an MOT failure over here. So on the other side, I cut away the bad stuff and put in a new piece of aluminium there, and I need to do that on this side as well. So that is the next job. Okay, so I've just been working on it for a couple of hours now, and I managed to take off this panel here. There's a couple of spot welds. These sort of flanges on this piece of metal were already bent back, and they connect essentially onto that part of the wing behind this here. Basically I just drilled these spot welds out and just managed to sort of use a relatively sharp chisel around the rest of the spot welds. It's a bit tricky to get in there, and just bring that out. So once I took that out, I was able to sort of clean up this whole area here. It still needs a jolly good clean, but you can really see the filler pipe there for the petrol tank, and also all of the corrosion. So there was another cross piece which went in here, which is, well, this is half of it. In fact, those are the spot welds I drilled out, and it's quite thick. It's over a millimetre thick, that aluminium. So there's quite a lot of reinforcement in this area. So what I've done now is I've cut out quite a bit of the rust, or corrosion I should say, with the angle grinder. And this is the cross bar here, like sort of angled aluminium, which is quite badly corroded. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably make a patch which sort of folds from that end there all the way over here, nice thick aluminium, and sort of fills that entire gap there, drill new holes and so on. And then I'm going to make a new piece here, which will then go back up in there to close that entirely in. So I've got some aluminium in the back of the workshop there, and I'll just fabricate a new piece with all the folds. So that'll be that done. But you can really see how twisted this filler neck is. You might remember I replaced this not so long ago with a new one from paddock spares, but what I noticed at the time was the new one was longer than the original one. So that means getting it onto this filler neck, it's wider at this end than it is at this end, was much more difficult, and it sort of has created, this is the first time I've really seen this, it's created this massive sort of kink in this. So what I think I'm going to do is, rather than try and get this off again, which would take bloody ages, I will take it off the top of the fuel tank, cut a section off it, which will then probably alleviate this this kink here. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. Otherwise, I'm going to clean up the rest of the wheel well here, and I'll have to prime it with an Etch Primer. This is for the same also for all of the new parts of aluminium I'm going to put on. Etch Primer, and then spray paint it black with a stone chip, so it just sort of tidies it up for the MOT. Okay, so it's a little bit tricky to get into this space, so I've been using a mixture of the angle grinder and the Dremel, and also a file, just to sort of clean off the corrosion. So that means actually I haven't been able to get, you know, exactly straight surfaces, but the main thing is along the top there, in that sort of letterbox slot, I've managed to get quite a clean cut, but all the rest are just literally angles where I've just removed the corrosion. So as I say, next step is I've cleaned the rest of it up quite a lot as well. So I'll clean it up with acetone, and then the next step is to fabricate the replacement piece that goes into there. So the plan is, once I've fabricated that, I will rivet it from both sides and in the middle, but before I do that, I'll coat both surfaces with a black sealant, just like I did the other side. So this is my somewhat crude template I've made out of cardboard. So what I'm going to do is, because of the corrosion which is down in that corner, I'm going to extend this flat by 10mm this way, this flat by 30mm this way, and then bend that up, crease that up, so it creates like a reinforcement to that hole in there. And then I will most likely rivet it from the bottom, sides, back, and the other side. So I've cut my piece of good aluminium out from this old floor that I have. I really have to sort of pick and choose where I cut sections, because there's a lot of corrosion in there. But what I've done is I've cut it out to size, and I've already done my 90-degree angle there. The only thing I forgot, which I mentioned in the last section of the video, is that I wanted to do the flap underneath the floor pan to cover that hole, and I forgot to do it, so I'll have to think of another way of doing that. But I'm gonna finish this off. Okay, so I've just been shaping that with the mallet in the vise, and managed to get pretty much a 90-degree angle here and here. And although measuring it was a little bit tricky, it seems to fit perfectly. It clamps in there really nicely, and yeah, so all I need to do now really is drill the holes in that side for the rivets. They're going to go in the, where are they? In the old spot weld holes that I drilled out. Ideally I would spot weld those again, but I haven't got the tools to do that, so I will just use the same method as I did on the wings, where I use some sort of countersunk rivets, and I'll do the same on that side as well. And as I said, do some in here and coat the entire, I've got to spray it first, so as I say, I'll do the Etch Primer, and then the well, I'll do it in black, and then I've also got to cut out this section here. Okay, so I found an old heater in the garage here, and I have now spray painted that aluminium with Etch Primer, and I'm putting it on that heater just to heat it up in here and just hope it or help it dry quicker, because it's very cold in here at the moment. But once that's dry, I've really got to get this this sealant also sort of at a usable temperature, so I've lent that up against the radiator. But once that's once I can use that, I'm going to get it installed over there with the sealant and so on. Okay, so I've decided I'm going to fill this hole here. What I mean by that is, obviously I was always going to fill with my inlay panel that I've made for this part here. That was always going to cover that hole, but I was considering filling it from the other side. But actually what I want to do is I want to cut a piece of aluminium to fit that gap here, or that hole, and I'm actually going to use JB Weld to put it into place. So I'll be able to, basically you can get to this, the other side of this, from behind the seat on the driver's side, and I'll be able to sand that down a little bit and then paint it so it looks smart. But I just wanted to fill that gap rather than having like a gap in the metal from inside the cabin. So what I've done is I've found some of the aluminium that I used for the floor. It's a bit of a pain in the arse to have to separate this, but what I'm going to do is going to make a section up of this, take away the honeycomb part and the back part, and use that. Okay, so I got that piece of aluminium off of the honeycomb section quite easily. There's some glue left behind which I have to clean off afterwards, but I've taped that on there, and I'm going to trace through from the hole on the other side within the cabin, so I'll get an exact match. Okay, so I've cleaned up the other side of that aluminium and cut it as best I can to shape. It's not brilliantly done. There's about, I don't know, about 0.5 millimeter gap on some of the sections, but I think that'll probably work quite well with the JB weld, just to make sure that it actually connects through, because I'll put some on from both sides. So I've got a bit of a Heath Robinson device here to clamp it all in place. But now I'm going to mix up the JB weld, which is a 50-50 mix, and put it in. Okay, so I've got quite a bit of JB weld on there. That's actually both sides, so the other side within the cabin and also here. Given it's so cold at this time of the year, the JB weld, even when it's mixed together from the two components, it's pretty glutinous, so it's not very easy to spread around. But I've actually put this, if you can really see it from here, I've put this heater under here. Just to try and dry it, but I'm going to pack up now and go home. I've also sprayed, this is that section which goes in here to cover that plate, and I've sprayed that. I undercoated that yesterday with Etch Primer, and now I did it black today. But as I say, I'm going to pack up today and probably come back to it next weekend. Okay, so welcome back to another very cold Sunday morning at the Land Rover. It's 2 weeks ago now that I started the work just underneath the wheel arch where the rear tub connects to the chassis. So if you remember, I was cutting some aluminium there, and also sprayed some last time, and also used the JB weld to create the seam between the new piece of aluminium and the old. So I'm just going to take that sheet off and we can have a look at it together. And I'm going to take the clamps off. Okay, so this is the piece that I cut to shape last time, which actually goes around this way, up inside there, which will create that seam there. And I undercoated that with Etch Primer and sprayed it with black. I pretty much left it as original before, so it's still got the marine blue on the back. So this here is the seam that I made with the JB weld, and I'm just going to take those clamps off and just see how it actually holds up, because what I want to do is obviously sand that quite rough seam down, fill the holes where the clamps are, and then fit that section I just showed you on top of it. Okay, so on first inspection, having taken those clamps off, I mean, this is a very thin piece of aluminium, not maybe a fraction of a millimetre thinner than what's actually on there, but that seems to have worked absolutely fine, and I think we'll be able to tell better when I start sanding it down a little bit, but I'm not going to take too much off, but that seems to have worked fine. I mean, that is solid. Solid all the way along there, so I'm pretty impressed with that so far. And I'm going to clean that up now, and then Etch Primer it, and then spray it black. Okay, so just first look at that panel now that I've cleaned that up. It's actually cleaned up pretty well. It went a bit, I don't know if you can focus there, I think it cracked through there, but that was only a very, very thin join. But otherwise, you know, I used the sander on the Dremel, and it's brought it up nice and flush, and it's still really solid. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fill those last holes, and then I will undercoat it with some Etch Primer and then spray it black. Okay, so that's got those last couple of cracks filled in now, and I'm going to wait for that to dry, and then I'm going to spray that with the Etched Primer. Okay, so that is the Etch Primer on. I've only done that section up to that little bracket here on the wheel well, but yeah, I'm going to let that dry overnight. You can see with the reflection of the light that JB Weld joint is, as I guess in places it's slightly rougher than others, but it's in general it's pretty smooth. So I'm very pleased with that. I'll see how it holds up, but I think I can recommend that to use on aluminium panel repairs. So I'm going to wait for that to dry and then I'll paint it black. Okay, so that is the top coat on now. That's all done. I've only done that section there. I'll go back and fill in the bits that I've missed at a later date, but on the basis that there's a panel coming inside here anyway, this won't be on show, but just to get it all tidied up, and you can see that replacement piece of aluminium in there is ended up looking pretty smart, so I'm quite pleased with that. Okay, so now I need to just sort of tidy up this sort of end section here on the sill. You can see it's completely rotted there, and I'm sure at some point I'll probably buy another one, but just so that I can, hang on a minute, how does that go? Well, I need to be able to fix this support to the outrigger on the chassis, and you can see exactly where that goes, that's missing, so I'm just going to put another piece of aluminium in here. So to cut that square, put another piece of aluminium in there, glue it in place, and then drill a hole through it so I've got a place for my support. Okay, so I've cut some new angle parts and repair parts for this tiny tiny sill end piece. Now I'm sure most of you are thinking that's a pretty elaborate repair for a very cheap part, but actually that's the those are the materials that I've got, and I thought I might as well just use them because it hasn't taken too long, maybe an hour or so to repair this, and buying new parts, waiting for them, possibly getting the wrong parts. I just thought I'd crack on with it because this is the next part of the job. So that is the repair piece, and it's JB Weld again. So what I'm going to do is wait for that to dry. It'll probably take overnight, and come back to that most likely next weekend. Okay, so last time I was here, I made up that little bracket, or repaired that small wing piece, or sill piece I should say, for the driver's side. So I'm just going to take the clamps off that and see how it's worked out. So it's all dry, obviously, it's been there for a week. So pretty pleased with that. Just a repair piece, it's just a 90-degree angle piece of aluminium, which I glued on there with JB Weld. And yeah, so I tried to take some of the dents out, but it's fine. I'll probably leave it. Maybe I'll try a little bit more, make it a little bit flatter there, but that's going to work fine. So that goes, well, it's underneath that cover at the moment, but that will go on the side there. I'll do that shortly. Okay, so I've got that angle piece of aluminium gluing there, and while I'm doing that, I've actually just patched a small hole there using a bit of aluminium. I don't know if you can see that there. And then I've used a bit of body filler on this side just to fill that in. But while I'm doing that, or while that's drying I should say, I've made a start on this piece here. So at the moment it's all a bit crumpled up and bent, but I'm just flattening it out so I can make a template for a new part. So I'm just drawing out this template of this piece. This is still, I'm using the section of floor that I took out all that time ago. Taking off the rib there, and I've managed to get, needs cleaning up obviously, but there's a solid piece of aluminium. It is actually a bit thicker than this here, so it's going to be slightly harder to bend, but I'm going to cut this out now. Okay, so that's that template cut out of that new piece of aluminium, and I've just tied it up a little bit. But now I've got to score some lines in it so I can actually bend it, and then start bending it. But yeah, that's the new section. Blue on the other side because that's the colour of the floor, and I'm going to leave that like that because it's enough protection for what I'm using it for. So I don't know if you can see that, but I've scored all of the bend lines in that metal, and because I took it from a template there, in some parts they're slightly off, but it won't matter too much when they're bent into place, so I'm going to bend those now. Okay, so I've pretty much got it there. It's
it's very thick aluminium. I think this is over 1 millimetre thick, this aluminium, so it makes it far more difficult to use than this original piece, which I think is probably, I don't know, 0.7, 0.8 of a mil. So this you can bend very easily. This you have to hammer like buggery to actually get it into shape. But I think I've pretty much got it there. So I guess the next step is to clean it up a little bit and try it in the car. Okay, morning guys. So Sunday morning, back at the Land Rover, just trying to make as much progress as I can. I took the day off on Friday and spent a bit of time on making that panel, which is just down there, which goes on the driver's side wheel arch, which has the bend in it within the within the wheel arch to protect the filler neck for the petrol tank. So I spent quite a lot of time on it. Let me just turn this around. And you know, bending the metal and heating it up and getting it right, only to find through my silliness that I've bent this the wrong way. So I looked at some photographs when I got home on Friday night and thought, oh Christ, yeah, I've made it round the wrong way. So actually what this needs to do is this needs to bend up that way. So I'm going to heat it up, and I'm just hoping this aluminium doesn't crack, because you can see here it's already started to go there, which isn't too bad because it's right on the edge. But I'm just concerned that if I heat it up and bend it completely back the other way, that it will crack. But so that's what I'm going to try now. I've got to charge the phone because the battery's almost dead. But as I say, just trying to get a couple of hours of work in this morning to move the project on. Okay, so I've just put that that piece that I made previously into there. It fits pretty well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill the holes for the rivets. There are 3 there, and I'm going to put 2 or 3 over there, and then maybe 4 in the back, just to hold it all in place. But before I do that, I'm going to, after I've drilled the holes, I'm going to take it out and put sealant on the back, so it's all sealed against that back plate. Okay, so I've got a couple of those rivets in there, so 2 down there, 3 across the top. I'm going to do those ones in a bit, because I'm still not decided how I'm going to seal that bottom part, probably with that angle aluminium that I've got. But that is looking pretty good, so I've put the sealant behind it. Now all I've got to do is put a couple at the base here, and then put in the larger section to cover all of that. Okay, that was a lot of fiddling getting those 2 bolts into this outrigger connection plate. You've got the petrol tank right behind here, and it's very difficult to get up inside there. The way I ended up doing it was a rather Heath Robinson way. I double-sided sticky taped the stainless steel bolt to the end of this hacksaw blade, which is broken, and just managed to put it up through there. And then this one wasn't so bad, but this one was very difficult. So just up behind the outrigger, and then in there like that. I put some copperies on there as well, just to protect it, but that is pretty much done. Okay, so that aluminium panel I made up here, because I bent it round the wrong way, when I tried to heat it up and bend it the right way, it creased and split on this seam here. So what I've done is I've got another piece of aluminium, slightly thinner, so it makes it far more malleable, bendy, and I am just fitting this in here now. So okay, so I've shaped that piece. That will go under there to protect the filler pipe, and cleaned it up, and I've painted it with some Etch Primer now, so just put it on the radiator to dry so I can install it today. Okay, so I've got that angled piece of aluminium in there, and I'm just going to support it from underneath so I can actually drill down from inside the car just into the lip along here, just to be able to support it. Okay, so you can't see very well, but this is the protection for the filler neck inside the car, and there are 2 self-tapping screws here, one here and one here. There are actually 4 which hold this down, and 2 bolts here, but these 2 here, 1 and 2, they actually go through the floor and then actually into the lip of that panel I just showed you underneath, so it all holds it nice and tightly in. So if I go around here and then show you from underneath, oh, well, saying that, one's worked. Wait, going to focus? That one there. So that one's worked, but that one's just pushed it open. So I'm going to have to undo that one and support it differently so I can actually get that to bite. Okay, so that is now completely fixed. So I've got 3 screws across the top, as you can probably see. 1, 2, those are the original ones, and I actually put another one in. Oops. And then I've got 2 rivets at the bottom there, and I've glued it all the way around. So I am pretty pleased with that. That is another jobbed, well, pretty much jobbed. I've just got to tidy up under here with the stone chip, but I haven't got any, so unfortunately I won't be able to finish it today. It's always the way, usually missing something. But once I've done that, then I can get the wheel back on, and that is that side done. Okay, so just while I'm waiting for the sealant to dry that I've just put in the wheel well, I'm going to glue in these seals for the front air vents. So one I've got in there is a new one. This one is original, but I'll just tidy this up a little bit because it's still got quite a bit of the old glue on the front. In hindsight, I probably should have bought 2, but that's what I've got now. So I'll just glue these both in place. So actually, to get these off, because of this arm in there, you have to take out the pins. So there's these long split pins here, like this, which go in through there, and they have a little split at the end, so you can pry them apart just to keep them in place. But that's what I'm going to do now. Just tidy those up and glue them in. Okay, so I've finally done these seals for the front vents. It wasn't actually as straightforward and as easy as you would imagine. Maybe it's easier for people who've done it before, but the new seal was just, I don't know if it's supposed to be like that, but it's just fractionally too short for this opening, which means you can't simply just lay it in there and apply the glue and close the vent and clamp it in. I had to put the glue around this end, hold it until it dried, and this is really explaining it, making it sound easy, and then smear the glue underneath the rubber once I'd sort of clamped it down. But you have to take this panel off to be able to thread the seal over that vent, and then you have to hammer these little pins in, and then go around. I went around sort of with a protected end of a screwdriver, just opening up this sort of seam here and pouring the glue, which is, I've got this stuff here, pouring the glue sort of inside the gap, and then clamping the flap closed from the inside and then just leaving it. So that's how far I've got at the moment. This side was easier, of course, because it was an original seal, and while it isn't obviously in as good a condition as that one, it does actually lay in there quite nicely. It fits that hole. So that one went a little bit easier. So I've got them clamped in there and I'm letting the glue dry now. Okay, so it's been quite a long day today. I've actually about 5 hours up here on the car, so it's about time to get back. So what I've done is I fitted that last sill piece with the original stay as well. So that is seriously solid there, that section now. I've also put the rivets in all over, sealed up all of the joints, and what else have I done? Yeah, that's about it. So yeah, it's quite a lot of work just to do that. So rather than just put some black hammerite on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the DIY store and get some stone chips. So what I'll do is also clean up all of this wheel well and put stone chip just to make it nice and neat all the way over the all throughout the wheel well. But that is it for today, and I'm going to go home. But I'm really pleased with that as a day's work. And just out here, you can see I even started to fill some of the scrapes and scratches, so I'll have to clean up this and paint it as well at some point. But that's for another day. Okay, morning guys. So we are back at the workshop today. It's a lovely Sunday morning in Dresden, 4.5 degrees, so pretty cold in the workshop. I've also got the door open because it's letting a nice lot of light, sunny daylight through. So the job today is to get this wheel arch finished off. So as I did last weekend, was refabricate this piece of aluminium in here to fit, and I got it screwed and glued in. And now what I want to do is to clean up this whole wheel arch and undercoat with Etch Primer and stone chip the whole thing so it smartens it all up. To clear up the wheel well, or clean up the wheel well as best I can, I've actually got to take the old number plate off, which is the first time it's come off in absolute years, probably 25 or 30 years. It's a small thing, but I thought quite significant, because I probably won't be putting this number plate back on, because when I put the MOT on the car over here, or the German TIF it's called, then it'll have a different German number plate. Okay, so just taking off the original number plate, which was made by John Rutherford and Sons, so God knows how old that is. But unfortunately it broke in two of the corners when I was taking it off. Those cracks were actually there before, but that's what it looks like underneath the number plate. So that's coming off and staying off, and will be replaced by a German one. I'm going to try and choose, just like I did with the other car, I'm going to choose a personalised number plate for this. So I'm going to put some ideas up on the video when I get that far. See which one you like the best. Okay, so I'm making a start on this now. I've cleaned up the aluminium on here. That was the original bit I did. I've roughened that up at the back there. That isn't dirt that you can see there. It's old underbody sealant, but rather than taking it all off, I've just scoured it down on the top here as well, and it's pretty smooth. I've also applied some new sealant all around these edges here, all up in these. I don't know if you can see, I'm now recording back on myself. The seams all around the wheel arch, and I'm going to put some Etch Primer on there now. But before I do that, I'm going to just tape up the things that I don't want to go black, which are these bolts and stuff like that. And then I'm going to protect these elements here so I don't get any overspray. Okay, so I did a little bit of that stone chip on the underside after I'd etched primered everything. And it was, I don't know, it really didn't work at all. I don't know, I think it's a really poor quality product. But you can see it just, up there, it just separated as soon as it hit the surface. It was a disaster, and before I knew it, the can, which cost £10, was empty. So I bought two of those. I'm going to take one of them back because it's just a really bad product. I'll get something from Amazon instead. The one I had before, whose name I can't remember, was really good. So I'm going to have to sand this down because it's left lumps and stuff. You can see them there, the drips. It's absolute disaster. And do it again. So yeah, you know, it's one of those things. So what I started to do was do some small details. You can see there on the right hand side of the windscreen, I started cleaning that up. I polished it, or rather I used a razor blade to clear all the fly crap off, which was inside and outside. It's amazing how much stuff was on there. Then I polished it, so you can see the difference between. This light's a bit bad, you can't really see the difference, but you can see the difference between that one which is cleaned and that one which is not. I also was doing small things like Scotch Brighting along all of the trim pieces here, just to tidy it up a little bit, inside as well. So you can see it there, that piece along there, which was previously it was covered in overspray from when the second from when I had the car painted first time. But it's just cleaning up details like that which make the difference. What else have I done? Yes, I did the trim pieces all the way around. I'm starting to polish these up here now, just so it matches in. And also just cleaning these windows here. So there's a huge amount of cleaning that I can do on this car. I haven't really done much in the past. So yeah, you can See how clean that windscreen is there. And yeah, so it's just small things like that, which is just a bit of fun. Okay, just doing some finishing jobs, and this is from underneath the car. This is the handbrake mechanism. So what I want to try and show you is, I've loosened it off now, but you can see there is a, I think it's called a split ring, sprung split ring, I can't quite remember, but then it's supposed to fit in that groove and hold this back. But when you pull the handbrake on, there is a lot of pressure against there, against that split ring, and it pings off. So what I'm going to do is, because this is quite worn and quite old, this thing, rather than buy a new one, I'm just going to drill a hole through this where that groove is, and put a cotter pin in there so it'll stop it from moving. So I've just drilled that hole. It actually went pretty well. Got it pretty straight as well. So I haven't got a pillar drill, you see, so I had to do it with the hand drill, but that's gone through nicely. And I found the washer that goes with it, and yeah, that'll keep it in place, I think, quite nicely. So I'm going to put that back in now. Okay, that's got that done. So that's just one more job done. Okay, so I'm just going to start today by doing a couple of small jobs, one of which is to replace these cable loom hooks, I suppose, which actually go underneath the, it's a bit dark to see, oh no, I've got a light on, actually go underneath the wheel arch, just back there. There's two of them, one at the top, one on the side there, and they hold that cable loom in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them out of aluminium, and I've already got some nuts and bolts for them, and I'll just do that quickly just to finish off this side. The other thing that I have to do here is just to go over the stone chip one more time, sort of, because I've got a bit of a dodgy finish on it last time, got some runs there, so I'll sand those down and go over it one more time. And when that's done, then that is this wheel arch finished. Okay, so I've just made up those two brackets for the driver's side wheel arch to hold the loom, and they've turned out all right, I think. It's a very, very thin gauge aluminium, but yeah, should do the trick. So I'll install those shortly. Okay, so I've put the last couple of coats of the stone chip on there. I rubbed down the runs over there, which has made it look a lot better. Oops, can't really see much here. No, but I'm gonna take off this tape now, if it would focus. And I think I've got a little bit more tape on these nuts here. There we go. So that has got that much, or that pretty much done in there now. That was the last major part I needed to do before I could actually enter the car for the MOT. So, quite a milestone. Okay, so that is those two cable loom clips in place now. So I can see it's a little bit close to that lip there, but they're not actually, even though these are tightened down, the cable is still relatively loose in there, so maybe I might put some extra tape around there, or just, I don't know, put some protection on that lip. But yeah, they are done now, so that is that wheel well completely finished. Okay, so just doing a little bit of research on these rear tubs. There is in fact a support which goes from under here, it's like riveted into a hole under here, and it goes up to, I think, this bolt here. So I've never had those on my car, and actually if you look at this, that flaps, and you can see that is hitting the mud flat. So what I've done is I've got some aluminium angle here, angle, I don't know what you call that, sort of, you know, like a strip of angled aluminium. I've actually had to cut it to size, but it's pretty sturdy. I've already shaped the top bit there. I'm going to put a hole in there, and that's going to go up, where are we now? Yeah, into there. So I'm going to put a hole in there. It's going to go to there, and then I'm going to shape it so it'll have essentially that type of connection down there. So I'll bend that up as well. I think that's how they went. So here's hoping anyway. Some pictures I found on the internet show that they've got these supports, so that's what I'm going to do. So this is at the bottom of the wheel arch panel, and you can see that there's a stud there, or a rivet there, which I'm going to drill out, and this will attach to that. This support that I'm making will attach to that. Okay, so just a quick look at this bracket that I'm making up. So I've used my little burner there to heat up the metal and bend that top bit, and also drill the hole for that. So I'm just doing the same on this side. I'm going to drill the hole now, and that should line up quite nicely with the hole that I've just put in the bottom of that wing panel. So next step is to, as I say, drill that, bend that, and then fit it. Okay, so it's done. I'm pretty pleased with that. That makes this whole sort of section here really really stable now. So I don't know. Oh dear. I don't know how standard that is, but as I say, I did a quick search on the internet and found 2 or 3 rear tubs which were in really good condition for sale, and they showed an underside picture of them, and they all had these supporting bars going from that rib there down to the bottom of that, and as I say, just makes it all that bit more stable. So in essence, that is all done now, that wheel arch. I keep finding little things to do like that. For example, that last thing I just did, didn't expect to do that, but now I've done it. And all the stone chips on. That's done, and yeah, time to put the wheel back on. Okay, so that is that side done. Wheel back on, lug nuts tightened up, and yeah, looking pretty good. Pretty pleased with that, as I said before. It's really good to get jobs done, you know. I mean, they take so long to do, and you know, the project is, I know, into its 5th year now, so getting so close that it's getting really exciting. So another job done.